I find it disconcerting, some of the latest things that have been happening, which sort of chips away at this ideal I have of the PAP as good.
Has complacency set in because the state has done a good job?
Complacency, I think, in the state maybe, that the state has been doing a good job and the state believes the state will continue to do a good job. How many generations of ex-civil servants have we had that are helming the political rings? They're holding it.
How important is it for the government, the 4G leadership, to be fairer and be seen to be a lot more fair?
I want to know whether he thinks too many GRCs, too few GRCs, more SMCs. All that will be an indication of the man he is. How fair, or what sort of playing ground, how level he is willing to take a measure of the man.
Hi, Bertha.
Hello.
Thank you for making time to join us today.
No problem.
Good evening, ma'am.
Evening.
So this one is a Thandai. It's an Indian festive drink made with almond milk and pistachios. And this one is a spicy Indian for you, sir.
Thank you, Karthik.
Oh, spicy.
Cheers.
All right.
Bertha Henson, thank you for making time to join us today. Now, you were a journalist with SPH, Singapore Press Holdings, for what, 26 years? 26 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And why did you leave SPH?
Oh, very simple reason. I was going to have a new editor, and I know that we have very different personalities and different political perspectives, and I think he knew that too. So and we'll probably clash. So I got out before I got killed.
As a journalist in Singapore for 26 years, 25 years, you have seen several elections. You've seen the change of prime ministers. Yes.
Yes.
From Lee Kuan Yew to Goh Chok Tong to Lee Hsien Loong in 2004. Can you share with us your own thoughts about the political evolution of Singapore?
Well, I think we know enough about the growth from third world to first, and that was under Lee Kuan Yew. And I thought Goh Chok Tong did his level best to keep that going with more good years. The next lap, and then basically we went for breakneck speed under Lee Hsien Loong until 2011.
What does that mean?
Growth at the fastest, greatest possible speed.
But not at any cost, right?
No, at that point in time, it was probably at any cost. That we couldn't relax, or somebody else would eat our lunch. So basically, we can't say that we want to go for moderate growth or slower growth, not at that point in time. So we had to go for growth. That's what, that's the slogan at that point in time, until the backlash became too great. So after 2011, the government had to start recalibrating how it does its economics, reliance on foreign manpower.
Whose prime ministership do you think was the most complex?
I think the two successive prime ministers, and Goh Chok Tong and Lee Hsien Loong, I think they had a pretty good start. There was plenty of goodwill. Goh Chok Tong came in with this underdog idea. And
seat warmer.
And I think people felt for him. So there was a lot down there. Lee Hsien Loong, we all expected it, but he did make some pretty big changes, even in his first year. A 5-day work week, who doesn't want that? And I think he listened to the people and changed some of the GRCs. He reduced them from 6 members to 5. So, these things sort of heralded a country that will be...
They're not big tectonic shifts.
Not big tectonic shifts.
Yeah.
But there are no big tectonic shifts in Singapore.
Shift from Lee Kuan Yew to Goh Chok Tong, wasn't that a big shift? People expected or didn't expect Goh Chok Tong to actually be a strong successor. But he actually ended up being a fairly strong successor.
Yeah, he had a difficult time.
He certainly wasn't just a seat warmer.
Well, 14 years. 14 years is quite a long time. It's 2 terms. Yeah, in fact, I think that should be the right time for a prime minister to sit, rather than go too long. So, I think we should also change our concept of what is seat warming.
Yeah.
And Goh Chok Tong, well, I'm very partial to Goh Chok Tong, and I covered him a lot, especially on overseas trips and all that. I've always found him to be a good man, good, I don't think we use that term for our politicians very much. We talk about talent, bright, whether they know how to do things. But, I found him a good man, somebody who was sincere, who was honest.
Why is that important, do you think?
We have moved, especially now, I must say, I thought so then, and I think even more so now. Because I think we place so much premium on smarts and being able to do things and do them well and do them efficiently, that we forget that, the fellow who does it must be somebody with the right interests, the right attitude towards the people he's serving, But, there must be some sincerity, in that. So I find it disconcerting, some of the latest things that have been happening, which sort of chips away at this ideal I have of the PAP as good. Yeah. So I suppose I'm very old-fashioned that way, because I think Lee Kuan Yew has set the benchmark on being good in terms of incorruptibility and all
You're
that.
sounding a bit abstract. Can you be more specific? What is it that upsets you?
Oh, so many things. Wow, where do I start? I think recently I've been very unhappy, with some of the things that are on display. I mean, basically like the Iswaran case was one, right?
Why did that upset you?
Actually, it wasn't the case that upset me so much as the politicians fumbling the timeline. I can't get it, about when, who was charged and all that. And I can't get it. Why? To me, it was the openness, And then the Tan Chuan Jin extramarital affair case, I cannot fathom how an MP can say, I don't care what my Secretary General says to me or my Prime Minister says to me, I'll just carry on. And I really don't think it is kosher for me, the voter, to sit in front of the TV and watch all this go on, totally unaware of all these undercurrents. So it's...
So the Tan Chuan Jin case, the former speaker,
Yes.
was it morality?
No.
Or does you know?
No, nothing.
So it was the way it was managed.
No, it was a question of being frank to the people who voted you in. If he has been there and you know that for months he's been doing this and you are going to boot him out, yet you still let him sit in the chair and preside over it like as though everything is okay and all of us are watching it, that's not on. That is not frank. That is not honest. The right thing to do is, hello, maybe take you out of that seat. Maybe not yet throw you out, but take you out of the seat. How can you do this to me?
You're basically talking about transparency.
Transparency,
Now,
yes.
Would you say that increasingly the younger generation, these things matter a lot to them? Would you say that?
I think they don't know what they don't know. That is the problem. For people who know, who can see that it's not transparent, is because they know these are the questions that should have been asked, that can be answered.
I guess what I'm driving at is Prime Minister Lawrence. He's got to be a different Prime Minister, a different age, a different era, a different audience, right? Is he more similar than his predecessors, or is he more different?
Frankly, I think he is someone who wants continuity. That seems to be a big word, with our government. Nobody likes any shake-up or whatever. It's always continuity. So
It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, but is it a good thing? Basically, it's like the word we hold on to, because it's so safe. It's just like saying we are for stability, of course, So, but
I don't think he's only for continuity.
Oh no,
That's not
I
the
don't
only
think so. Of course. I think he's done, you can see the 4G leaders try to make a mark in some areas. I would consider, for example, medical health issues, caring for the aged. Later this year, there will be the workplace discrimination laws. There's a flexi work, then we'll have unemployment insurance. So I think the focus of the 4G leaders is inclusiveness. They want to make that a sort of very big platform for them. that is fine. That is fine by me. But I think there are two other points which I should be addressed to quite urgently. One is the economic front. Yeah, I don't see a big idea, and the only big idea is skills upgrading. And frankly, I don't know whether it is good enough.
You're saying that there's not enough imagination to have a big idea. We are topping up what we already have.
We are topping up what we already have, and we are actually repeating some old things. Like, for example, in the past, we would say, we want MNCs to come here and relocate. We want more foreign investors. Now we're saying, oh, don't worry, we still have MNCs coming. We still have, foreign investment. There's nothing newish. Now what is the big thing? The big thing is AI. Everything is AI. Everything is AI. I tell you, I'm getting so AI out, of this thing. So, but I think we should see AI as, the next big thing, but as a way to raise our own value, our productivity, rather than on its own.
I think, to be fair, most countries are struggling with coming up with a big idea.
Yes.
With the exception of a country
big
like
countries.
USA, right? USA has always surprised people. Just when you think that they are going under, they come up with some brilliant ideas, like the way they've managed AI, the way Facebook has moved into Meta, and so on. There is a certain imagination.
But that's from private enterprise.
Private enterprise. And that's what I think we need a lot more of. We need private enterprise to really be in the driver's seat a lot more.
And it's not the case in Singapore.
It's not. It's not. And would you say that that's an area fundamentally that needs to shift?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I agree entirely. I think the civil service should not be the fallback or the main source of the talent pool of Singapore's governing elite. I was so perturbed when I read today in the Straits Times that the Chinese side, the Chinese government, thought that Lawrence Wong was okay because he shared his growth trajectory was similar to their leaders because he was PPS to PM and then he became. I'm like, oh my God, what does this say about us?
Comfort for a different reason.
That's
not the reason why we should be giving comfort.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm concerned about is, in spite of all the economic growth, we don't have icons. We don't have leaders, probably with the exception of Piyush Gupta and DBS, iconic leaders, who can actually come in and say, come on, let's ready the ground, move. It's not happening.
It's not happening. It's not happening for a simple reason.
Why is it that in spite of all these years of economic growth, we don't have an iconic brand, with the exception of Singapore Airlines and for a short while Creative Technologies? If you compare with South Korea,
or the chaebol.
Look at all the big names that have come out of South Korea. If you look at Finland, if you look at Sweden, these countries are not that much larger than Singapore, population-wise.
Yeah.
But they've been able to come up with iconic names, including ABBA.
Right.
But why is it that we've not been able to come up with a brand?
Because I'm trying to answer, babe. Okay. Oh dear.
Tell me.
The fact that the private sector is left to its own devices to try and do what they can for themselves, and it sort of works.
Yeah.
Down here, the private sector seems to think it is has to show gratitude, or it is there by the grace of official blessing, and therefore, they wait for government to take the lead. That's the way I see it. And I think that's very unhealthy. If you have to keep waiting for government to say, let's go this way, let's go that way, let's go this way, and you are afraid that if you do something different, it's wrong. I mean, the state has a very big hole in the whole economy. Who wants to anger a powerful state, within the economic field?
And the truth of the matter is the state has done well. Compared to many other countries,
of course, the state
driving the economy
has done well.
They've done a good job.
Yes, but will they always be doing as good a job?
Has complacency set in because the state has done a good job.
Okay, I don't know about complacency. I think in the state maybe that the state has been doing a good job, and the state believes the state will continue to do a good job. And I'm not sure that will be how many generations of ex-civil servants have we had that are helming the political reins. They're holding it. Do we always want it to be that way? Because what we'll have is people who are brought up in the same system coming up with the same ideas. Of course, they will say, no, we come up with other ideas and all that. But seriously, you can make a difference if you have a whole different experience. Look at Tan See Leng, right? I mean, he's older, he's private sector. I think he's got a very good grasp of his portfolio. He's been able to cut his teeth. He doesn't, and we know that it's not because he was, admin service officer to who, and he has to answer to it. So this is
And you
clean.
say it's refreshing.
Yes.
When you bring new blood,
Yes.
different background, not from Raffles Institution, and not from Oxbridge necessarily. I think those things are important.
Lawrence Wong from TK Tech.
Yeah. There seems to be a certain comfort with people you are comfortable with,
Yeah.
you can trust.
Yeah.
You just look at the people who are appointed as chairman of the Temasek Link companies. They are fairly capable people, but it's the same group of people who move around like a round table, right?
Yes.
They just go around. You think part of the problem is an unwillingness or a discomfort in trusting people you're not that familiar with?
Both. I mean, unwillingness because of the distrust. I mean, you can see how everything is set. Just look at the elected presidency, everything is so formulated and calibrated that to ensure a certain type enters, and it's difficult for others. So basically, that's the impression that I get. You have to be of a certain type to be able to make changes. But even then, how can you make changes? You are of a certain type anyway, So when people talk about groupthink, and I know that, the state, the politicians say there's no such thing, we all fight, internally, all that. I don't know, man. But, you tell me what's the fresh idea you have, I don't see. Then am I supposed to listen behind closed doors to hear you all argue this and that out? I don't know. So at the end of the day, if you want to say that you have creative ideas, that you put it out there on the table, let me see, but I don't see that. So the big idea, it's so hard to tell you what is it I'm expecting. But I am thinking to myself, it can't be just making you upgrade your skills, right?
Of course.
Yeah, and then it's like, so that is one thing I'm trying to figure out. Here's something on the economics front. But I think the greater problem will be the social front.
Yeah.
And the social front, the biggest issue, and I think opposition has already started it, foreign workers. Yeah? I mean, basically, I don't think the angst about foreign workers is as bad as 2011. Because at that time, infrastructure was really overwhelmed,
So but, you can feel the
Yes, you can see it around you. But now, there's another thing that's happening, and that's cost of living. So basically, if I'm Singaporean, I find it so hard to buy things. Then I see another foreigner walking around, sauntering around, then I say, hey, hello, what is he doing? It's a very primeval response, very emotional. And, it's very easy to make foreign workers the scapegoat for anything that goes wrong, So how do you then try to explain the need for foreign workers, especially when our fertility rate is like, oh, wow, How do you explain to people? And here, maybe I can offer one reason why it's so hard for people to grasp it. It's because whenever the government tries to change tech in response to people, it chops and changes little bits here and there, adds here, adds there, it's like a Jenga block kind of thing, you put it up, and then, just wait for it to crumble. So people cannot grasp all these small calibrations and recalibrations. So you say, oh, I'm going to have this for tech people, I'm going to have this for this income. you can't grapple, and I can see
It's too complicated.
it's too complicated, too multifaceted, and I think we need to start looking at some of our policies.
And simplify it.
Simplify. It's like HDB. It's a hydra, multi-headed hydra. You know.
And also healthcare,
Yes, I know.
CPF,
Yeah.
just when you get used to
it.
something, changes come in. And changes with the best intention.
Yes,
But what
agreed.
you're talking about is constant changes actually are counterproductive.
Yes, and disorientating.
Right? Because people don't get it.
Yes.
People don't understand
Yes.
it. But you see, the point I guess we are making is it's with the best intention that
Yes.
the government
Yes.
is doing all this.
Yes.
There's tremendous amount of effort and work that has gone into it. But I would say that Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, his primary duty would be to move the things that have not moved for a very, very long time, and they're stuck. What we talked about, trusting more people to come in, but there is a risk because these people may not be as tested as a scholar. But I feel that we can afford to trust more people. And for me, that is a fundamental issue in this country. Whether it's the opposition, whether it is political leaders who come on board, are you prepared to take a chance with more Tan Si Lings, for example? All of these things point to, a certain discomfort in going too far beyond what you're used to, the scholars and so on.
It's this thing called kakinang, you want to be with the kakinang, you don't want somebody outside. But then also you have to think, do these people outside the circle actually want to come in? We're in a bit of a devil in deep blue sea situation. So over the years, we've also developed a certain comfort level about letting the state do what it wants to do. Even if they do go in, I always wonder whether they'll fit in. Can you imagine your colleagues in the cabinet are ex-civil servants, right? And then they are reporting to people, to civil servants who used to report to them, or maybe So there's all this, is it incestuous kind of a arrangement? And then you, an outsider, come in. Wow! If I need to block you, if I want to sabotage you and kill you, I probably can do it quite easily.
Going back to someone like Tan Si Leng, the Minister for Manpower,
Yes.
he seems to be able to manage it very well.
He manages very well.
He is your typical outsider, so to speak.
But I think also something's going for him. For one thing, he's not young. And so
He was 55
basically,
when he joined
yeah,
politics.
So, and he's already made his money, made his pile already. So you don't have all these angs about, oh my God, what compensate for this or that. And his children are grown up, right? So for him, it's a second lease, a new adventure, So I'm wondering, okay, private sector people may not want to come in if they are building their careers. People in their 40s, even late 30s, they want that chance. But then, maybe you should look beyond that. People who have made their pile and see a new way of retirement, so to speak. So maybe over there are opportunities, I don't know.
How important is it for the government, the 4G leadership, to be fairer and be seen to be a lot more fair in politics, especially in opposition politics?
Well, I don't think any sitting government would want to be fair. It's quite normal. Even in the US, they'll just redraw boundaries to fit themselves. But I think we need to think about, it's the same argument they make about good politics. What is good politics? What is fair politics? We are such a small country. And I think we've been lucky that we've been being run by this huge banyan tree, But I'm not so sure that banyan tree, I don't know how stable the roots are anymore. And so it might be better, give it different kind of fertilizer. So, but you cannot have a system where we die, we will keep that banyan tree standing. We need something more. We need more different types of ideas, different things. And you can only get that in if people perceive that I have a fair shot at it. If you go in and the playing field is so distorted, what's the point? You won't just not get opposition people joining the opposition. You probably won't get people joining you. because do you want to be part of this uneven system? How would you defend it? I don't know how to defend it. If I come out and say, I'm a member of a 5-member GRC, I got in, and the fact is, I got in, therefore, you must listen to me. Okay, but you got in? Or is it your minister? Or what? It is so not transparent. So I argued in my book, that actually one of the things I like to see is, a breakdown of constituency by constituency, how people voted. So we know what the voters think about their own leaders. No word, I haven't heard anything. So basically, I've done the next best thing, I think, for this GE. I put out a template asking people, to go and give it to the MP and let them fill it in. This is a template on their record over the past 4 years. So how many sittings, what you speak up on, what did you do as a town councillor, I think it is incumbent of us, to make people accountable. So at least when I vote, I know what I'm voting for, who I'm voting for. I'm not voting based on the whim. Even, let's say, Lawrence Wong, right? Why did he suddenly come into the front? Because of COVID-19, right? Before that, he was a technocrat with very little visibility, except for SIRS. Yeah. But, but then he was put in this position where he has to face people every day on a very big brief. Okay, he could have screwed it up. He didn't. He handled the brief very masterfully. But then you also have to ask, he got the chance. If someone else had the chance, then how? And now, if you looked at all the leadership positions, the public don't see them anymore. Don't see them as themselves. They go to parliament, it's a scripted speech. Even answers are scripted. And then, they make speeches, it's also scripted. Everything is scripted. You don't get a measure of the person. Only the civil servants can. The civil servants who work with them. The rest of us, we are blind. We don't know. We have to trust that those ministers up there make the right decision. I am getting to be quite irritated with this trust idea, because it demands so much of the people that you are practically saying that I must go and delegate my brain somewhere, that don't use it. It cannot be. So that is actually my worry.
I'm really thankful that you've raised some of these very important points. We may not have answers immediately, but they need to be raised. So here's my question to you. What's that message that you want to send to the new Prime Minister? I mean, we talked about a whole range of things.
Right.
Economics, social, political, and so on. But if you pull them all together, what's that fundamental piece of advice that you'd like to share?
My advice would be for him as leader. I think he has to find a way to get rid of this image of himself as a last-minute compromise candidate whom, no one can take offense with, kind of thing. He has to be able to show that his cabinet colleagues are behind him. How do you do that? I think the next best occasion will be November, when there's a party CEC conference. I think he should quickly make a bid to be Secretary General, because that's when it's very clear that his cabinet colleagues didn't just have to, I think this one can, but they have to make a decision, that this is the leader and I'm going to pick him, and we are all behind him. So he won't suffer from this short runway that he has.
I mean, historically, when Goh Chok Tong and Lee Hsien Loong became Prime Minister, they didn't automatically become Secretary General.
No, they didn't.
Right? In fact, when Goh Chok Tong became the Prime Minister,
he called a general election.
When the general election was called, he was still not the Secretary General.
Yes.
Lee Kuan Yew was still the Secretary General.
Yeah.
So there is precedence.
Oh, but you see, of course, but do we want precedent? So what if there's precedent? If we do what is right for our time.
Does it have to do with the length of the runway?
I think the way I see it, I think it will help to clarify that, I know my runway is short, but hey, I got my people behind me. And as Secretary General and Prime Minister, I will go into this election with, everything is in my hands, which means I can set the tone for the next 4 or 5 years. And that's very important. And when you tell me about how, how he wants to shape it, or what message, that message will come at that point in time, at election time. So basically, first of all, I will have to see, wow, he is going to tell the Boundaries Review Committee, go and redraw boundaries. Now, I want to know what he says to them. I want to know whether he thinks too many GRCs, too few GRCs, more SMCs. All that will be an indication of the man he is. How fair, or what sort of playing ground, how level he is willing to take. What sort of playing ground he's willing to play in.
You
Yes,
want
a measure of the man. Yeah. And then when he goes in, then the people will give the choice. Then we'll see what happens from there.
Are you looking forward
To what?
the new Prime Minister in charge?
I don't know. I mean, basically, I think that Prime Minister Lee
20
should
years.
go.
20 years as Prime Minister.
So basically, I mean, if he left earlier, I wouldn't have minded. But the new man, I don't know the new man. So I don't know whether to welcome or not. I welcome the change, but I don't know the new man. You get what I mean?
Well, my way of seeing it is he's been picked. We should give him the best support we can.
Yes. And I think that support must first come from his own colleagues. They had better lead the way.
I have a sense that they will. Thank you very much for joining me,
Okay.
Bertha.
Oh.